चक्रेण तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति श्वापदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणम्। Hare Krishna everyone. We are studying chapter 15. So last week we covered first 5 verses. So we'll cover the next 6 verses today. So in the last week we discussed about how the material world is compared to a reflection of what, banyan tree reflected in water. So the reason for such example is the material world is not real. The real world is actually spiritual world. Just like when we stand under sunlight, there is always shadow. Shadow is not real. Shadow represents that shadow. When you see shadow, you know that there is something real, right? Without shadow can only indicate that there is something real, but shadow is not real. There is something real and shadow is not real. Similarly, so in the existence of material world tells there is something true, which is spiritual. That is real, and this material world is like shadow, right? So the example given is like that of banyan tree on the shore of a river, right? You see a big banyan, huge banyan tree with so many branches and so many small fruits, banyan fruits, reflected in its shape on the water. So in the water, you would see the shadow or reflection of the tree. Everything appears real in the water also. But if you try to catch it, you will never find it because it's only shadow. It's not real. It's a reflection. Similarly, there appears to be happiness in this world. There appears to be joy, and appears as if this world is like real. But actually, this world is nothing but a reflection of the real spiritual world. The reality exists in the spiritual world. And here also you will have relationships, the so-called love between people, the so-called happiness. All of those things exist in the material world also, but they're actually like shadow, right? We find that our experiences in this world are all temporary. They are never permanent, right? So the reason is this world is like a shadow world. It's not the real world. The real world is a spiritual world, or Vaikuntha or Goloka. The material world is a reflection of that true spiritual world, right? So that's what we discussed last week in the first verse. Now we'll discuss further. One second, I'm just going to come in 1 second. So covered 5 verses. So it talked about this reflection, which is the material world. So we Lord Krishna compared this material world like an inverted banyan tree. It's like a reflection in water of a real tree. Right? So these are all verses. Everything appears real, but it's not really real. So this. Now the real world, which is the spiritual world, is explained. How is it explained? Let's see. Natad bhashayato yate surya
Natad
bhasayate suryo
bhasayate suryo
nasha shanko napavakaha
nasa shanko na pavaka
yad gatva nivartante
yadgatva na nivartante
tad dhama paramam mama.
tadhama paramam mama.
Now Lord compared the existence of spiritual world, how it actually works in the spiritual world. Yeah, please read, anyone?
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world.
So Lord compares. So here in the material world, if you want to see something, you need light. Without light, you can't see anything. For example, it's in the night. In the night, can we see anything? Without any lights on, we can't see anything. This material world is like a dark place. This material world is a dark place. It's like the universe has a shell, right? So the whole 14 planetary system is floating within this universal shell. The universal shell is like a coconut shell, right? In the coconut, if you are inside a coconut, can you see anything? You can't see anything. It's all dark. Even the material world is also a dark place. The only reason we can see anything is Lord fixed one bulb in the form of a sun. Right? There is one bulb fixed for the entire universe. Everybody in all these 14 planetary systems depend on that one bulb called sun. Sun god is the responsible person for lighting up this world for half of your day, right? Otherwise, it's all dark, right? It's a dark dungeonic place. Material world is like that, designed to be like a dark place. But out of causeless grace of God, he fixed one bulb whereby you get light for, out of 24 hours, you get 12 hours of light. Exactly.
Is this only for Bhulokam or above Bhulokam? We have that Swargalokam and all. There also it's the same.
Yeah, they'll also get same light. Yeah. All the planetary systems get the same light. It's all because of sun. Up to Brahmaloka. Right? So the down planets, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Patala, Rasatal, Talatala, these planets actually don't have any sunlight. Lower planets don't have sunlight. They get light through the jewels of some demons, actually. It's all described in Bhagavatam. So it's only light of some jewels on some, living entities. There is light in the lower planets, but otherwise there is no light in the lower planets. But Bhuloka is the middle planet. From middle planet up onwards, there is light because of sun. Yeah. So you see.
Prabhuji?
Go ahead.
Who lives in the lower planet? Is human beings are there or just?
Lower planets, for living entities who are given punishment, they are sent there. And there are yakshas, rakshasas, there are living entities subhuman, right? They are all placed there in the lower planets. Based on one's karma, living entities are sent to different places. If somebody lives like an animal and is always cruel to others, they will be sent to lower planets. It's so the place where we are is like, if you can pay $1,000 rent, you will be placed in a 2-bedroom. If you can pay $2,000, you can get a 3-bedroom rental home. This body is like a rental property. The type of body, the karma you have is like a rental property. Based on if you have a bad karma, like bad credit, for example, you won't get nobody will give you a good home to live. You may have to stay like in a single room apartment where there is lower credit required, right? Lower credit is fine. Based on how much you can pay, your pay is ability, or your amount of what you can pay is your karma, right? Your sanchit karma means your past accumulated karma that defines what you are going to enjoy in this world, right? This body is like a rental property. So somebody is very sinful and committed a lot of sinful actions in the past, in the current life. In the next life, he will get a lower body, either an animal in this planetary system. Even if it is even bad, then he may get lower planets, or even the bottommost planet. If somebody kills a cow or a brahmana, they'll get the lowest planets. Bhagavatam describes very clearly, based on what kind of action one gets what kind of planets out of these hellish planets, right? Somebody is bad, even in this world. If somebody misbehaves, steals money, or they'll be put in jail and they'll be punished. This is called law of the land. Similarly, there is universal laws. Even if suppose somebody escapes the law of the land, right, by hook or crook, if he escapes the law of the land, but the universal laws will catch up with him, right? If he somehow escapes the punishment in the country, doesn't mean that he escapes. For his wrong action, he will be given enough punishment in his before his next life, right? So he'll be given. So there is no escape from the laws. Based on our actions, we have to go through. The only escape is holy name. You chant the holy name, all your sanchit karma will get evaporated. The whole karmic debt of millions of lifetimes will get burnt away, like a fog, they say. So otherwise, there is no escape. Everybody has to go through their karmic cycle, right? That's why for a pure devotee, their astrology doesn't matter, because their astrology keeps on changing, because they're always burning their karma, right? So if suppose you have an accident in your horoscope, but because you are a devotee, you're chanting every day, it may not be there next year if you check it again. So I mean, some part will be there, some part you cannot erase, some part you can still erase, right? Your devotee's karma changes according to the will of Lord, depending on his surrender to Lord, right? Otherwise, everybody has to pay for the price. They have whatever they have accumulated in the past lives, they must go through their karma, no exception, right? For example, it's like a choice, right? Every minute you have a choice. You bought a ticket. You have a choice whether to go on the flight or not. But once you board, there are things you cannot change. For example, once you board the plane, you cannot say where you want to get down. That is fixed. So some karma is fixed. You cannot change. The kind of parents you get, that is fixed. The kind of lifetime you lead may be fixed. There are things that you can change. Every moment you have a choice. So if you surrender to God, the choice time, your life is different. Anyway, that's a slight distraction. But in the spiritual world, there is no light at all. You see, there is no sun, there is no moon. Everything is bright there in the spiritual world. There is no darkness. There is no sleep in the spiritual world. Yeah. Please read this.
The spiritual world, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Loka, Goloka, Vrindavana, is described here. In the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity because all the planets are self-luminous. We have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is the self-luminous, but all the planets in this spiritual sky are self-luminous.
So here, can you read this?
As long as living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditional life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky, by cutting through the false, perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. Then there is no chance of his coming back here.
So as soon as one cuts through his material life, material world, he is liberated. So once you go to spiritual world, there is no coming back. So please read this.
One should be captivated by this information. He should decide to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached.
So if one is very difficult to cut that attachment, but if it takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. So one should take to Krishna consciousness to be saved in this from this material world. So read this line also.
So one has to associate himself with the devotees, those who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service.
Yeah, so we have to seek after satsang. That is the only way to keep our motivation to get out of this material world. Otherwise, we'll live all our life just like animals. Will come back to this world again, right? So this information cannot be utilized by any other living entity other than human being. So we have a chance. So we should take use of it. Mamaivaamso jivaloke.
Mamaivaamso jivaloke.
Jiva bhuta sanatana.
Jiva bhuta sanatana.
Manasasthanindriyani.
Manasasthanindriyani.
Prakriti sthani karshate.
Prakristani karsate.
It's a very important verse. Let's read it again. Mamaivaamso jivaloke.
Mamaivaamso jivaloke.
Jiva bhuta sanatana.
Jiva bhuta sanatana.
Manasasthanindriyani.
Manasastrani indriyani.
Prakriti sthani karshate.
Prakristani karsate.
Sweta Mataji. Yeah, please read. Yeah, please read.
The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind.
So, living entities in this conditional world. Living entities in this conditional world means material world. We're all in the material world. Actually, living entities in the spiritual world also his parts only. Mamai Vamso. Amsa means part. Whose parts? Mamai Vamso. Who is saying? Krishna is saying. Mamai Vamso. My parts. All these Jiva Loka means people in this world, material world, conditional world, are actually parts and parcels of me only. Right? Eternal parts. Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Sanatana means eternal. So all these living entities are actually part and parcel of me. They have the same spiritual nature truly in their core as me, right? But when they come to the material world, what happens? They're conditioned by the three modes, and they have this material mind, and they are struggling to. So the jiva, the spiritual spark is actually anandamayo bhyasat, means always eternally happy. But because the jiva that came to the material world is always trying to be happy, just like it was in the spiritual world, when it was in the spiritual world, because that's the nature of the spirit soul. It always seeks happiness, it always avoids misery. But unfortunately, it is looking for wrong things for happiness in the material world, right? So mind is, promising happiness in various ways in the material world, and it is trying to seek that happiness, and it is struggling with the six senses in the material world. Because what? Because of conditioned life. Conditioned means we are conditioned by what? The three modes, right? Conditioned means you are put in a separate covering. You are in a covering, right? You are covered by your desires, right? You are covered by your nature, right? Your conditioned nature in this material world. So they are making you struggle because of this conditioning. You're always struggling to be happy in this world, fighting through your six senses, which includes mind. Mind is the one always disturbs us in the material world. Mind is your best friend or your worst enemy, right? So mind keeps you dragging to so many things in this world, promising happiness, right? We are, only buy that you will be happy, only buy this you will be happy, only go to that place you will be happy. So in this way we are having, putting so many goal after goal in our life, but we are never fully satisfied, right? That is all because of the illusory happiness promised by the mind, right? Mind always promises, if only you get this, you'll be happy. But that happiness is always like a carrot, right? So Krishna is saying how the jiva, even though it is part and parcel of God, unfortunately covered in the material world by the influence of the modes, and thus it struggles with its six senses being dragged in various directions, right, by the mind. That is our experience, right? Mind is always dragged in this world. Okay, please read.
In this verse, the identity of the living being is clearly given. The living entity is the fragmental part and parcel of Supreme Lord internally. It is not that he assumes individuality in his conditional life and in his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme Lord. He is eternally fragmented.
So we always exist as these eternal fragments. So some people, some so-called spiritualists say, you merge into God and you become one with God. That is wrong, because here clearly Krishna says, the living entities are my eternal fragmental parts. They are my parts eternally. Means they will remain their own self eternally, right? Even in this, when you go back to Goloka or Vaikuntha, still there you will be engaged in as an individual entity. It's not that you will lose your identity. You will be engaged in the direct service of the Lord in the spiritual world. So you are an eternal fragment. You are not a temporary fragment in the material world. You will remain as a fragment even in the spiritual world. Please read.
It is clearly said, Sanatana. According to the Vedic version, the Supreme Lord manifests and expands himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansions are called Vishnu Tattva and the secondary expansions are called the living entities.
Yeah. So we are all part and parcel of Lord. That's what it means. So we'll skip this. Yeah, please read this.
As fragmental parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the living entities also have fragmental portions of his qualities, of which independence is one. Every living entity as an individual soul has his personal individuality and a minute form of independence.
We all have we are all part and parcel of Lord, means a small part of the absolute truth. Doesn't mean that we are like we don't have, we, even though we are part, doesn't mean we are like a energy part, right? Energy particle. We all are conscious, right? Even though we are part and parcel of God, generally parts are not conscious, right? Like if there is sunlight, there are sun rays. The sun rays are not considered like like living entities. We are, even though we are part, still we are conscious. We are conscious parts. That's important to understand, right? So as a conscious part, we all have personal identity individually, right? We all have. And so when you have an identity, you have individuality and ability to be independent, right? Or express your individual nature, right? So we all have that minute form of independence. So the whole reason why we are in this middle world is so each of us are eternally parts of the Lord, but we are all independent parts. And so we all retain some minute independence. But when we try to misuse that independence, right? When you try to misuse that independence, then you will be sent to the material world. That's what this is. Yeah, please read.
By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul. And by proper use of independence, he is always liberated.
Yeah, so
The living entities, not only human beings and the cats and dogs, but even the greater controllers of the material world, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and even Vishnu, are all parts and parcel of Supreme Lord. They are all eternal, not temporary manifestations. The word karsati, struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up as though shackled by iron chains.
yeah. So all the living entities are, so the word used is karshati here, right? In this word, karshati. Karshati means hard struggle, right? So in the material world, the jiva is going through hard struggle, right? It's not a very convenient place. To live in the material world is not a convenient place. For example, you wake up in the morning, you have to clean your body. You have to maintain your body. You need to, eat food. You need to breathe. To move out, you need to have a dress. So it's not that you can just live like that. You have to obey, or you need to do certain things always. Not just that, and to lead your life, you need to work hard. Otherwise, you can't earn your livelihood, right? So there is struggle. And besides that, your senses are dragged to so many things. You want to buy this, buy that, you want to achieve so many goals. So in this way, the conditioned living entity is struggling with its six senses in so many ways while living in this world. So that's why it's called Prakriti Sthani Karshati. It's struggling very hard. And I mean, if you go to spiritual world, you don't need to work for anything to earn your livelihood. It's not, the provisions are made automatically, right? So there is no, the only thing they do is be engaged in the loving service of the Lord. That is the only thing the people of the spiritual world do. But here, to lead your own life, you need to struggle hard. Maintain your body, maintain your family, maintain your children, relations, struggles, so many things that all exist in the material world. That is the nature of this material world. It is designed to be like that. Why it is designed like that? If it is easy, convenient, nobody wants to get out of this material world. For example, if the jail is convenient and there is free food, will anybody want to come out of the jail? They go to jail for free food and they never want to come out, right? There should be motivation to get out of the jail, to lead a free life in the society. This material world is also at a higher level, is like a jail. So there is karshati, there is struggle with the six senses. Krishna clearly explains here that even though my living entities, the living entities in this world are all my parts and parcels, they are all spiritual in their true nature. But because because of the conditioning that exists in the material world, they're struggling very hard with their six senses to lead their life in this conditioned world. Yeah, so we read this. Shariram yad avapnoti yachapi utkramatishvara grihitvaitani samyati vayurgandhani vasayat. Please read.
The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another.
So, living entity in this world, right? He's carrying. So he's moving from one body to another body. Just like I was giving the example in the beginning of a rental property. If you are in a rental property, you are living in a rental property. As soon as the owner wants you to get out of the place, you have to find a new place. Similarly, the body has a lifetime, and as soon as the body is worn out or disease or whatever conditions, the soul has to give up the body and find a new place. It is the way it is designed. Though as long as you are in the material world, you have to keep changing the bodies, right? And the next body is determined by your karma, right? Or your paying capacity. Just like today you are living in a $2,000 rental property, for example. But somebody lost his job and he has to quit the place. He can only pay $500. Then next rental property is $500. It's a single bedroom instead of 3-bedroom. So similarly, a living entity who had committed sinful actions in the current life, based on his capacity to pay, he will be given, or the karma, he will be given a lower body in the next life, right? So one keeps on carrying through different bodies, right? Different properties. He will keep on changing while living in this world, right? So he will get different conceptions. If suppose you have a human body, you have a different conception. You have certain friends, certain way of living life, traveling, all of that is different. But when you are an animal body, for example, somebody gets into a deer's body, he'll be living in a jungle, he'll be always afraid of tigers. His whole conception of life is different. For you, the conception of the way you see life is very different. You have no fear of death, for example. In a human society, there is no fear of death. But if you're in an animal society, in a jungle, there is constant fear of death. They're always anxious. They're always moving their eyes because of fear of death. Because based on their karma, they only could achieve that much body, right? So they have to go through with their karmic cycle. Nobody can save from it. But while living in the body, they have a different conception of life, on what it means to lead a life, right? How the experiences of life unfold to them is very different than how it unfolds for a different living entity in a different body, right? So, but while going through different bodies, the soul remains the same. The soul in the human body now goes to deer's body. The soul is same. The conception, the outlook of, the way it sees the world, the perceptions are all very different based on the body. For example, today my food is rice and dal. Tomorrow my food is grass or, some other thing, right? So the conceptions change, right? So that is given. And then thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Unfortunately, Krishna is explaining the cycle of birth and death in this verse, right? So when one moves from one body to another body, there is one more thing that happens. So he is constantly accumulating karma based on his actions in the current life, right? He might be doing some good actions, some bad actions, some neutral actions, some spiritual actions. So those are all will be carried along with him to the next body, right? So that is the air carrying aroma, right? Just like just like air carries aroma from one place to another place, the living entities vasanas carry him from one place, one body to another body. For example, some people are, by nature, they're very, agitated or angry easily because their vasanas are enforcing on them, right? Some people are, by their nature, from a very childhood, they start stealing things from others because that's their innate nature. Their core nature has that stealing nature. So in this way, every jiva has a certain nature, right? And they keep changing their bodies and they go through, different experiences and conceptions of life according to where they stand in the current life, right? We're all animals at some point. We're all, maybe living in higher planets, right? Yeah. So the important thing to learn is the choice is with us, right? Every moment we make choices in our life, right? Every moment you have an option to choose one way or the other. So your choices determine your karma, and your karma determines your future life, right? So, so what happens to you is based on your past karma. For example, you're walking on the road. Suddenly you hit a rock on your leg, on your feet, and you fell down, right? So what happens to you is your karma. You can't stop it. You are destined to get injured, and then you got injured. But then how you respond to it is up to you, right? If somebody slaps you, that is your karma. But in return, what you do, you can give him back another slap. That is one way of responding. Or you might take it as your bad karma. You don't respond. You just take it, right? Without reacting. That is another way of responding. The various ways to respond in any situation. What you choose is still in your hand, right? So that's the freedom of choice that we all have. Generally, that is what the second factor is, the most determining factor in your future karma, right? If somebody retaliates on you, you retaliate on him, generally you carry your future karma in the same quantity. But if you don't react, you might nullify your karma. Okay, so that is how things work in this world, right? Yeah, that is a choice of life, that is the most important thing while leading a life in this material world. How you respond to things, the stimulus in your life. Some people, when they were in the lows of their life, whatever situation, they lost their loved ones, or they lost their job or whatever, they can take shelter of wine or some other bad habits they get habituated to. Some other people can take shelter of God, and in that they find solace, right? So everybody reacts differently for the same stimulus based on one's own nature. So it determines what you will get in the future based on how you respond in your life to your life situations, right? So you can be spiritually reacting, or you can be materially reacting. That determines your future course of life, your karma and everything. So you still have a choice in every situation in life, right? So that is one thing we should very clearly understand, right? So that is called our minute independence. So we should leverage that, right? Yeah, please read this.
Here the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him on to the next type of body.
Yeah, so the kind of body we get depends on, actually, the last moment of life is very critical. At the time of death, you may ask anybody, if they have a near-death experience, they can tell you, they will get a flash of the entire life's experience in that moment of death. Okay, their whole life is screened. My own uncle had gone through this, and he explained exactly what has happened in his life. So their whole life is given, and some of them are desires unfulfilled, some of the things that they wanted, all of those will happen. If you are stuck on that particular moment, that will determine your future life, because that is what you are stuck upon, right? So nature or the material existence operates such that, okay, you are hanging on to this, maybe this is the proper life for you in the next life. So next life is given such that you can fulfill such the desire that you are stuck upon in the current life while about to die. So you are given a last minute opportunity. Some people try to remember name of God or chant the holy name of the Lord, or they hear the sound because there are devotees surrounding them, because they are a devotee all their life. So some devotees come and chant the names of God while they are there, at the last moment of their death. So if the devotees are chanting the holy name, then there is a good chance they remember that, and actually that can help them journey home back to Godhead or Vaikuntha, spiritual world. So in this way, the consciousness at the time of death creates your future life. That is very, very critical piece. So if one can, that's like death is like examination, right? You may be given a higher body or a lower body based on exactly what's the snapshot of your consciousness at the time of death. What did I say? Snapshot of your consciousness at the time of death. Yeah. So So if we cannot remember God unless we practice to remember the God all our life. Suddenly you cannot just remember God at the time of death without practice. Just like suddenly you cannot write answers without preparing for the exam throughout the year, right? The throughout the year is a preparation and the final exam is there. Similarly, life is a preparation, death is an examination. Death is nothing but a change of body. And based on your life, the way you led your life determines your future life. And so that is a very critical junction. Death is a junction. Yeah, nobody likes death. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to have death in their family or their own. But death is something that you cannot escape. Everybody has to go through it. Better prepare properly and face it appropriately, right? That is the best way of dealing with this inevitable truth of life. When we ponder carefully, anyway, in the end, everybody has to die. Everybody, whether somebody led a better life than us or a bad life than us, everybody has to die. And true success is how successful you are at death is the true success of your life. If you are rich and you have gotten so much, but at the end of death, if you are remembering bad things, your next life is just gone completely. You will get a very bad body, right? So what is the point of what is the point of leading such a luxurious life if your death is not destined properly? So we have to practice Krishna consciousness throughout our life, so that at the right time we get the right remembrance of Lord, and so we can achieve success in our life. Yeah, so please read this also.
The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body, which carries the conception of the next body, develops another body in the next life. This process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in the body is called kashyati, or struggle for existence.
Yeah, transmigration. Srotram chakshu sparshanam cha
Srotam
Chakshursparshanam cha
Rasanam granam eva cha
Rasanam Granam Eva cha
Adhisthaya manaschayam
Adhisthaya
Adhisthayam
manasaya
Vishayan upasevate.
Vishayan upasevate.
Yeah, please read.
The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects.
So how next body is formed is explained here. So based on you have certain desires, you have a certain type of desires. For example, somebody likes to eat meat. That is his nature. So he will be given, he is stuck at that thought when he is about to die. So he will be given certain ears, certain eyes, certain tongue, certain nose, certain sense of touch, according to the desire he had. If his karma also permits that body, so the gross body is given such that one can fulfill the desire that he has desired at the time of death, right? So this whole journey in the material world is like a roller coaster, right? So based on, God does not force us to take shelter of God. God doesn't force. It should be by individual choice. One realize the nature of this world and take shelter of God and go back to God, right? So suppose there is force, then there is no true love, right? If God were to truly love us, he cannot force us to love him. So this is a very important concept to understand. So while God allows us to be back in spiritual world, he does not interfere with the independence of the jiva. Understand this concept clearly. So as a loving father, if somebody forces us or forces to love him, is that true love? Somebody forcing him to, you only have to love me and you have no other choice. Is that true love? Anybody?
No.
Yeah, it's not true love. If there is force, there is no true love. So God, God teaches these lessons, but he does not force us to love him. It is only by our own choice we have to love him. Until we love him, or until we have love for other things in this world, let's put that way, until we have love for certain things, I am attached to so and so thing, okay, give this body. And then at the end of that life, I am attached to some other thing, okay, give that body. So God keeps on giving us different bodies until you are fully clear out of all illusion. Understand that I don't have anything to do with this material world. This is an illusory place. This is a place of struggle. I just want to go back to God. That is the time or moment of your liberation. Until then, you have, oh, I want to enjoy, I want to earn money, I want to enjoy like this, I want to enjoy like that, I want to eat this, I want to touch that. You have all these desires, God will sanction you happily. You will get a different body until you fulfill all your desires, until you come to your own senses and, okay, I am done, I have no other desire to enjoy in this world. You are my true happiness, I want to go back to you. I have no other desire. Until you come to that conclusion and you live by that conclusion, you are going to be given a body in this world. So you have to go through the cycle of birth. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So ihasham sare bhavudukkare. Adi Shankaracharya says, this samsara is a very miserable place. Until one takes Pahi Murare, until one takes the shelter of Murari, Adi Shankara says, one has to go through the cycle of birth and death. Ihasam sare bahudukkare. He has to struggle otherwise in this world, right? So Krishna is just explaining, oh, you have a desire like this? I'll give you, all your senses. Because you need to have certain teeth, certain tongue to eat meat. Then only, if you have a desire to eat certain thing, you will be given certain senses. You cannot enjoy without those senses, that particular body. If you, if you are given a different type of senses, group of senses, you cannot enjoy in that. So based on your desire, based on your, your consciousness, you will be given a group of senses so that you can enjoy in a particular body in a particular way. It is, just like, your child, right? Your child, he has different desires to enjoy different toys. He will go to a shop and he will ask, I want that toy. You have no choice, you will buy it. And then he goes to, after a few days, he will throw that toy. He's done with the toy. Now he wants another toy. What do? Okay, give that toy. So until he stops himself asking, I don't want any more toys, I'm more happy playing directly with you. You will keep buying, right? Because as a loving father or a loving mother, you have to fulfill the desire of your father, your child. That's exactly, it's a perfect example on how this whole material world operates. It's as simple as that. You can think about God as a father, living in it as a rebellious child in this material world. Just like, if you just understand the concepts of a father and child, you understand how this whole material world operates. It's very simple. It's not complicated. Yeah, please read.
In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life, he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure, like water, but if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure. But consciousness is changed according to the association of material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When, therefore, one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hog, demigod, or one of many other forms. For there are 8 lakhs for 8 crores 400,000.
84
8
lakhs.
million 400,000 species.
8,400,000 species. Yeah. So these are how many different types of bodies exist in the material world based on one's consciousness. So these are all divided based on consciousness. So one can get any of these bodies based on one's level of consciousness, right? So if you don't want any of this, that is also possible. True Krishna consciousness, then you don't get a material body in this world. You go back to spiritual world.
So
Very
out of,
important concept.
84 lakhs, only one is like human being, right, Prabhuji?
Oh, actually, human being is 400,000 levels of consciousness there. So it is not just the bodies. These are not bodies. These are consciousness levels. So within human body also there is one who is almost liberated, that level of consciousness, versus one who is almost like animal, the lowest. So within human body also there is tribal and there is highly conscious brahmana. So levels. So these are levels of consciousness.
Okay, Prabhu.
So
These are
human
not
body,
physical bodies, Prabhu. These are
it's
not
not
physical.
necessarily physical bodies. It is actually levels of consciousness. So human body itself has 400,000 levels of consciousness. You can imagine, right? So only the top 5,000 will be, reading Bhagavad Gita. The rest of the 395,000, I don't believe they will ever come across spiritual life. Yeah, or top 1,000 or yeah. Otherwise, you will not even come to Bhagavad Gita. It's impossible. There is no way. You're almost there. We are almost there. But we still haven't, we are not, there is no guarantee for us. We can come back as, but generally, if you chant the holy name, at least you are given a human body. If you chant the holy name, because human body means you have a choice. And you made the right use of your human body by studying Gita and chanting the Maha Mantra. So those will guarantee at least you will get a human body. If you don't get human body, it's very difficult to again get back to the fighting mode where you want to go back to Godhead. Otherwise, you don't even get a chance to get liberated, right? So practicing spiritual life generally at least guarantees human life, because you have utilized human life for its purpose. which is the liberation, right? So that is one good guarantee, but doesn't mean you will achieve perfection. The moment you are at least attending regularly means you are already crossed almost 98% of the species of human life generally, right? But we are not there yet. We still need to execute with full focus until we get there.
Prabhu, the number of rounds of chanting, the 16 number, right? How did Prabhupada come to that number? Is it mentioned in Bhagavatam? Somewhere?
No, actually the count is for our regulation. Ideally, one should always chant the holy name. The recommendation is to Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Means Hari's name should be chanted always. But acharyas are like, if God is there, they are like very trusted servants. They are sent by God himself, right? They know the truth. They are liberated. They come here, and on their behalf, if suppose an acharya promises something, God will fulfill the plan of the acharya. It's like this, right? So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Kaunteya pratijaneti name bhakta pranashyati. What does that mean? Kaunteya means Arjuna, go and boldly declare, Name bhakta pranashyati. My devotee will never perish. He will always be victorious. Krishna says. Why he says that? If his devotee declares, God is, and he is a trusted devotee, right? Arjuna is a trusted devotee of Lord. God would not ever forego his promise to his devotee or the promise of his devotee. If a devotee says that, God would fulfill. So similarly, we accept Prabhupada as a pure devotee and a confidential servant of Lord. And by the way, his guru recommended 64 rounds, means 8 hours of, at least 7 to 8 hours of chanting every single day. Our daytime is 12 hours, and if we chant 8 hours, imagine how much time we'll have for life, right? But based on the current situation and the current level of, the lifestyle, Prabhupada recommended to chant at least, 16 rounds, right? And he said he had that, empowerment to liberate a person just by, if one sticks to that process of 16 rounds, right? All his life, right? At least from the time he has promised to chant, that means through initiation. So that is Acharya's kindness and mercy, you can say. Not even, like today I cannot go and say, oh, 16 rounds is difficult for today's time and days, I will chant 8 rounds, or I will declare henceforth you can chant 8 rounds. I'm no authority, right? If a viceroy on behalf of British government declares something as a rule, that is still a valid statement, because the viceroy is an appointed servant of the British Raj or British government, right? So in the last 100, 200 years, there was viceroys appointed for the countries ruled by British. They can declare, they can do whatever, they can say whatever, and that is followed, that is accepted as authority. So similarly, acharyas have that privilege to declare, so they also, they don't just want to reduce the standards. They will observe the nature of the situation, and they actually recommend based on what can be done practically. Generally, they align with scriptural guidance. And as per, so the number of rounds is, is is not declared, as far as I know, it's not declared like you have to chant this many rounds. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended 64 rounds 500 years ago, and that was followed until 100 years back, very sincerely by all many devotees in the past. But based on time and age, circumstances, Prabhupada has reduced to 16 rounds, which almost takes 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on how you chant, how much time it takes for you to chant. So that is like a recommended number of rounds now. Is
Okay,
that clear?
Prabhu. Yeah,
Prabhu?
Prabhu. Thank you.
So we'll end here. We'll continue from 10th verse in the next class. Any other questions?
And Prabhu, during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's tenure, is the lifespan same, like 100 years?
500 years ago, yes, lifetime is similar. During Krishna's time, in Dwapar Yuga, lifetime is different. There, people were living almost 500 years on average.
And how did they chant 500 times each day
When
during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's tenure?
Oh, so during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu time, they were chanting 64 rounds, almost, which takes about
64 rounds,
6.5
yeah.
hours. 7 to 8 hours it takes. Yeah, they were chanting. So the lives, their lifestyle is very different. People wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they spend 4 hours, and then in the evening after. So the most of the people in those days, they were only agrarian culture, right? Agriculture. So there is no work after 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And that lifestyle suited people. They come, they hear some Harikatha every day. That is the culture of India, right? Every day they hear Harikatha grouped in some temple or somewhere, and then chant the holy name. Their whole life is, surrounded by godliness, godly consciousness. Now we drive to 2 hours for job. That is not how it is in the past. Their whole life is secured within the small village they used to live. The whole country is only villages. Very few places are towns, for administration purpose. It's a different time and place. It was quite possible at the time for 64 rounds.
Prabhuji, that what is the significance of 108? Like, we see that number is very special, but in what is in ISKCON, what is the?
So there were 108 gopis, primary gopis. Okay, so chanting 108 beats implies that you are actually touching the feet of each gopi. Gopis are actually who? They are pure devotees of Lord, right? So by taking their shelter, you are actually getting their blessings, and thereby getting the blessings of the Lord. So that is one of the primary understanding. 108 is auspicious. There are many lot of significance to 108. Like there are 108 Divya Deshams, or holy places, and like that there are few other I don't recollect other things, but 108 is an auspicious number.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Anything else? So I hope today's class is very inspiring us to take human life seriously and take Krishna consciousness seriously. You can see these are all words of Krishna, right? Is the direct words of Krishna. He's clearly explaining this world is a temporary place, and there is a spiritual world, spiritual abode, where there is no, it's not lighted by sun. There is no electricity, there is no light. It's all self-effulgent. It's eternally happy place. The place here in the middle world, people are struggling with all their senses, including mind. The jiva, when he goes to the spiritual world, he doesn't have to come back. So these are all, in much more detail explained in Bhagavatam, but here itself you get a glimpse of, the importance of leading spiritual life in this world, right? And ultimately focus on the ultimate goal of life, to go back to Godhead, right? So whatever we are practicing, the chanting of the holy name, satsang, hearing Bhagavad Gita, these are all core principles that will help us get to the highest goal of life. Don't believe anything else. All these, so many other goals that people give us, they are all going to keep us in the material world only. This is the truth. There is no higher truth than what is given in Bhagavad Gita. Everybody in the world accepts. It's not just a idea of India. It's Bhagavad Gita is the manual of life. Doesn't matter whether you are Indian or American or from some other country, some other state, doesn't matter. This is the highest science of life. So take advantage of it, the knowledge of this, and simple practical yoga that we can all do. Whether you are a grihastha or you're living in the forest, anybody can chant the holy name, right? It can be practiced very easily. So do not miss that. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Take as much time as you need.